What if everything we've been told about autoimmunity is wrong? I'm Elizabeth Yarnell. After awakening partially blind one morning in 1999, a doctor told me my multiple sclerosis would put me in a wheelchair within 10 years. I refused to accept that as the end of the story, so I started investigating. Welcome to the Inflammation Investigator, the podcast that uncovers the inflammation lurking underneath your ailments. Because autoimmune and chronic conditions should not be viewed as death knells when they are actually alarm bells. I'm a traditional naturopath and founder of the Inflammation Academy. And in 2 episodes every week, we dig into what conventional medicine might be missing. If you're living with chronic or unexplained symptoms, this investigation is for you. Your body has been trying to tell you something. Let's start listening.
Welcome back to the Inflammation Investigator. We're moving into a new topic today. Not a new topic per se, but a different chapter in this podcast. And we're going to be talking about food and chemical sensitivities. Don't forget, I will be reading. In the aftermath of my multiple sclerosis diagnosis in 1999, it was my then fiancé, now husband, who first suggested that my illness could have something to do with my diet. He was a competitive athlete in a ski town who had recently placed 6th in the nation in a snowshoe race up and back down a mountain, and he was into cooking and organic foods. I, on the other hand, was a girl on the go in the city. I had lived alone for almost a decade and either ate out with friends at restaurants, grabbed fast food on the go, or simply skipped meals altogether. My pantry, as I've mentioned, was pretty bare except for my go-to staples of Diet Coke, Crystal Light, and gummy bears. I rarely used my tiny apartment kitchen for much more than reheating leftovers or a bag of popcorn in the microwave. I had to admit that he might have a point, and not one I had ever considered before. I had been viewing food as a necessity that could sometimes taste pretty good, but more importantly, needed to be available quickly with as little effort as possible. Frozen dieters' meals, takeout, and delivery were on the menu. Even though I didn't earn a lot of money from my various gig jobs in film and television production and instructional design, I would frequently visit a pricey sandwich shop rather than purchase the individual sandwich ingredients to bring my lunch to work. In retrospect, the thought of taking the initiative to prepare food for myself to eat was overwhelming and pointless, since I could feasibly get something into my stomach without the exertion of using my kitchen. That it would take less effort to slice a tomato than to actually leave the apartment and walk or drive to purchase a prepared sandwich didn't occur to the pre-MS 20-something me. Nor had the idea of choosing foods to nourish my body rather than simply propel it. I just didn't put more intention into what I was eating than it took to choose a restaurant. And this practice had led me here, to this dire prognosis for my future. Something had to change. I began studying the connection between what we eat and how we feel, first through armloads of books about health and healthy eating, and then by taking nutrition and natural health classes wherever I could. I read health books endorsed by the Mayo Clinic, the American Heart Association, and the American Cancer Society. I discovered Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon for the Weston A. Price Foundation, Diet for a Small Planet by Frances Moore Lappé, and the Moosewood Cookbook by Molly Katzen. I investigated and dismissed as not healthy the popular fad diets such as the South Beach diet, Atkins, keto, and paleo. as well as the unsustainable dictates to be completely sugar-free, fat-free, or carb-free. I read up on Dr. Roy Swank's theories as outlined in his pioneering 1948 book, The Multiple Sclerosis Diet, that advocated food choices low in the saturated fats found in red meats and high in the unsaturated fats from nuts, seeds, and fruits like olives and avocados. He recommended completely avoiding the hydrogenated fats, also known as trans fatty acids, or more colloquially, trans fats, that are only found in processed foods. Though I came to believe his guidelines are only part of the MS solution, I still think they have merit and are good to follow. In fact, the more I learned about the link between our food choices and how our bodies function, the more I realized that healthy eating pretty much boiled down to a simple principle. Whole foods are better for us than processed foods. And no, I'm not talking about the grocery chain owned by Amazon named Whole Foods. I'm talking about lowercase whole foods, as in real, pure, unprocessed foods like produce, grains, and meats that haven't been adulterated with added chemicals, sweeteners, fats, colors, flavors, emulsifiers, or anything else intended to alter the flavor, texture, shape, or shelf life. I call this way of eating pure foodism. As a teen in the 1980s, I had been at least partly raised on TV dinners, canned soups, white bread, soda pop, and bags of snack chips. So adopting a whole foods-based diet would be a major paradigm shift for me. As evidenced by the aspartame addiction I fed with my daily habit of Diet Coke, as well as the several packets of the artificial sweetener Equal, the brand name of aspartame, that I dutifully added to each cup of coffee, I had fully subscribed to the marketing slogan of better living through chemistry. However, if all I needed to do was to follow a whole foods-based diet in order to stay out of a wheelchair, then yes, as daunting as it seemed, I was going to dedicate my life to figuring out how to do that. I decided to become a pure foodist to save my life. I enrolled in cooking classes at a small cooking school nearby and began watching cooking shows on television, but quickly realized that preparing meals from whole foods, otherwise known as cooking from scratch, was both time and labor intensive. Since fatigue is a hallmark of MS, I often felt overwhelmed and exhausted. But I was dedicated to staying out of the wheelchair, and I became certain that following a whole foods-based diet was essential to achieving this goal. I began looking for better ways to accomplish the arduous daily task of preparing healthy meals from scratch when I became the accidental inventor of a quick, easy, and healthy method of cooking whole foods, and named it Glorious One Pot Meals. We'll talk a little bit more about Glorious One Pot Meals in this podcast for sure. Abandoning a standard American diet, otherwise known as SAD, was a huge stepping stone on my path toward reclaiming control over my health. Giving up beloved foods that were high in synthetic sweeteners, artificial colors and flavors, and additives and preservatives, but low in nutrients was challenging, to be sure. Reading ingredient labels for the first time opened a frightening window into just how pervasive questionable additives and preservatives have become in our food supply. I find the contamination of our food supply so appalling that I made it the subject of my 2014 TEDx talk titled, "We Are What We Eat, Poisons in Our Everyday Foods." Now, at the end of this episode, is a great time to go check out that TEDx talk. You can find it very easily on my website at elizabethyarnell.com, or of course over at TED.com. I will see you in the next episode.
And that's another case filed on the Inflammation Investigator. Remember, every symptom is your body's way of communicating. We just need to learn the language. If today's episode sparked something for you, I want to hear about it. Share your own investigation discoveries with me on social media at Elizabeth Yarnell, or find me at elizabethyarnell.com. Your experience could be exactly what another listener needs to hear. And make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And here's the thing about investigations. They work best when you're not going it alone. If this podcast is helping you uncover the answers you've been searching for, please like, rate, subscribe, and review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. As a new podcast, these actions mean more than you know. Want to dive deeper into your own inflammation investigation? Head over to inflammationinvestigator.com, where you can take my free inflammation quiz to uncover which hidden triggers might be affecting your health. Until next time, this is Elizabeth Yarnell, your inflammation investigator, reminding you that the solutions to your health issues are out there. Let's find them together.